Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show. We're very excited today because, quality of life does actually include travel. And our friend Steve-Piacente is back on the show. He's the owner of Next Phase Life Coaching in Rockville, Maryland. He's the author of a number of novels. You got to check him out. Look him up on Amazon. And he's also the author of Your New Fighting Stance, Good Enough Isn't, and You Know It. It's one of our favorite titles, and it's a fantastic book to read. He's also the director of training at the Communication Center in Washington, D.C. We encourage you to go to his website, Steve-Piacente.com. And we're very excited because he sent us this amazing travel story of a photo essay talking about travel and sharing photos of his trip through Israel. And if you follow him on Instagram, you're going to see amazing photos every single day because he's an amazing photographer. He's traveled all over the place. And so his story is fantastic. And it not only talks about the benefits of travel, but he really gives you 6 solid reasons of how it can change your view, change your perspective, and just have a better life through travel. So welcome back, Steve. How are you?
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Nancy. Great to be with you. And it's wonderful to just be around right now.
Yeah, it is, right? And we actually get to see you this time. We've done radio, audio all these years, and now here we are. Yay. And we get to have your photo of the Dead Sea behind us. And Nancy and I have never been there. So we thought, well, we'll just go sit in it.
Yes.
Well, one caution, the salinity is really, really high. So they tell you when you go there, don't put your head under the water. And of course I did, because I wasn't expecting the buoyancy to be so strong. And so I just wanted to float on my back, and I did. And I flipped over and I got the salt water in my eyes, and man, it really stung.
Oh my gosh.
So I wonder if it's like Salt Lake and Salt Lake City.
I don't know.
Utah.
Supposedly the salinity is the highest in the world.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yikes.
I've never done that. And I think Israel is something. I always wanted to go to Israel when I was a kid in South Africa. A lot of girls and guys. If you're a guy coming out of high school, a lot of times you end up going into the military. But for girls and people, before, it depends on what you're doing with college. You'd go either backpacking through Europe, or you go work on a kibbutz in Israel. And I always wanted to go. And I thought, I want to go, and work on an olive farm. I had no idea about anything to do with olives at that point, but things happened and we had to come home to America when I graduated. But you got to go there, and you spent 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a really great experience. It's funny because you have kids and you take them places, but then your kids grow up and they go places, and then you go to visit them. And my son-in-law got a 2-year job in Tel Aviv. And so my son-in-law and his wife, my daughter, and their 2 children were in Tel Aviv for 2 years. So we got to go actually twice.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And that's what I mean by, your kids bring you places sometimes.
It's amazing. And it's interesting when you even think how they do that. But there's something also, you go places, but it's about, you even talk about this in your article about travel being the travel versus the traveler versus the tourist.
Yes.
And I think that was well put. Even though you're going there for family reasons,
Right.
You went across the bridge that people else didn't want to go.
Yeah. There's a great quote by somebody named G.K. Chesterton, and it goes, "The traveler sees what he sees, but the tourist sees what he has come to see."
And that is really true.
Yeah.
Because I used to lead tours, and I could see the difference of the people in the group who was a real traveler and who just followed the itinerary, and they were always so concerned about lunchtime.
Right.
That came before anything else.
Right. Well, and the other thing I discovered as I got more into photography is that it's much more important and rewarding, at least to me, to collect photos as opposed to, souvenirs or some kind of trophies like that.
Yeah.
For me, what does it is capturing the moments like the one behind you.
Yeah.
That's what I really get a charge out of.
Yeah.
You've got wonderful photos of people, which I know is
Mm,
tricky to do, especially in different cultural circumstances. You don't just go,
right.
hello. I remember in Santa Fe, New Mexico, you don't just start photographing,
Yeah, they get
everybody
a
at, the Indian markets. You just don't, that's a no.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not a human zoo. However, photographing people out in public, it's kind of this interesting thing. And as a life coach, you've got to kind of enjoy that part, bringing your photos back, knowing, ooh, I need to capture this. There's something about that person. But then you kind of, it puts you in their shoes in this temporary virtual world, yet you're there,
Yeah.
Well, you get to relive the experience too.
Right. Right. There's another one that I like, attributed to that famous person Unknown, who said, travel not to escape life, but so life doesn't escape you. And I
Mhm.
think that captures what you were just saying, Lisa.
Mm,
Exactly. And, well, I love your photos. You know that on
mhm.
Instagram. I'm always like, "Cool,
Yeah.
he's gone here. Look at this. He's seen this bird." Because you capture, all these, nature, the city, and putting this photo essay together was interesting because you showed the various scenes. You showed police, you
Mm.
showed street art, which some
Mm.
people go, "Oh, we can't have that," and then
Yeah.
so you showed these different faces: a little girl on a bicycle, paddle
Mhm.
boarders, also religious,
Mhm.
things going on,
Yeah.
lighting of candles, and a
Yeah.
priest, so
Well,
this was
when I
neat.
go out, I'm not really looking for something. I don't have a preconceived idea of what I want to get. It's almost like the way I do my writing. I'm open to whatever is going to happen.
Mm.
And, in the same way that I let my characters sometimes dictate the action, when you're out there with the camera, you may
Mm.
think you went out to shoot the Dead Sea, but then you turn around and there's some amazing scene happening right in front of you. And you
Mhm.
just have to be open-minded enough to realize it and capture the moment.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And this goes
Mhm.
with what we're talking about for life and quality of life, is that travel does that. But you kind of, what I love about your article too is, for those traveling, is okay, maybe change how you're traveling.
Yeah.
And this is some of the principles that you can do. Just if people can't go to Israel right now, you can still do this in your own neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are life lessons that, it's about being open, out of this, the six. You want to travel, but
Mhm. Yeah.
it,
I mean, one of my favorite questions as a life coach when I am working with my clients and they come up with a challenge or an obstacle or whatever it is to have them ask, how else can you look at this? How else
Mhm.
can you look at this? Now, of course, one way to look at it in a different way is to get on a plane and go somewhere. But
Mhm.
during COVID, we've all seen that that's not always possible
Mhm.
or practical. And so one thing I've discovered is my own neighborhood. We are lucky enough to live in a place that backs up to a big creek, and there's lots of paths and wooded areas. And I've really never
Nice.
explored them the way I have during the past year and a half. And lo and behold, there's great photo ops right in there.
Mhm. Yeah.
See, you
Mhm.
can. And also you talk about these benefits of, it could cost money to go here, all these issues, but there's so much you get if you go and you stay open-minded. There's a lot of lessons that it helps you have clarity on whatever you're working with at home by going through
Right.
travel and experiencing different things. It helps you with problem solving.
Yeah. And
Well,
and also, yeah, I'm sorry, Nancy,
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the reverse of that, when you do manage to get out and overseas or to a different state or someplace different, if you try to leave your preconceived notions behind and open
Mhm.
yourself to meeting and talking with strangers, as long as they have a mask on,
Yeah.
Right.
and are open to new ideas and new experiences, you will see, whether you're doing photographs or not, you just change your perspective. And when you come home, you look at things with a little bit different light. And that's where I feel like the life coaching and the travel intersect.
Mm.
Yeah, sometimes you tend to only look straight ahead because that's what you
Yeah.
do when you walk.
Mm.
And when you're out, especially if you're going to take photographs, but if you're out exploring a new place, sometimes you forget to look up, look to the side, look down, look at things that are different, that even the plants are going to be different than maybe what you've seen before.
Yeah.
And there's
And-
all kinds of intricacies that you miss if you are so focused on one or two things.
Yeah, I had a great photography teacher in college. And I think this is a good metaphor for life. But he would make us go out, because I went to school in Washington, D.C., where everybody has taken a million pictures of everything. So he would make us go out to a famous monument or whatever and say, lie on your back or get on the ground, crawl around,
Get down.
Find a different angle than everybody else has shot. And I think that's what we forget to do in life too, right? We look at it just as Nancy was saying, with walking straight ahead, head down, eyes down, and miss everything around us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're all in accord on that.
Yeah.
Well, I've got, we're creatures of habit, human beings, because it becomes a very, I know what I'm doing, very routine. And in life, you need those routines so you can handle things, but you don't want to have the routine to the point where you're not open anymore. So this is what brings in balance to me,
Right.
because you've got to experience these other things. And when something bad happens, how do you handle it? If you have been such a creature of habit, this bad thing is going to be now earth-shattering compared to a hurdle.
I agree with you, Lisa, but I don't even think it has to be a bad thing. I think you can just be in a rut and maybe not even know it. And that's what getting out of your, let's call it your comfort zone instead of on an airplane, but getting out of the comfort zone, it forces you to change up your schedule, to try new things, to be more spontaneous. And I mean, when I'm overseas, I'm looking for that. That becomes my new standard operating procedure.
I mean, even eating new food, that's the thing. Have something that you always eat a chicken sandwich for lunch. There's other things out there.
I'll never forget when I was in Thailand, up in the northern part of the country, and there was an elephant sanctuary. And I put myself in the hands of an Uber driver who took me up. It was probably a 40-minute drive into what looked like wilderness. And then all of a sudden there was the sanctuary, and it was unlike anything I had ever seen before. And you could actually walk amid the elephants. Some were babies, some were full grown. And, of course, my camera was not far from my side. There was a rambunctious young one, and I almost got bowled over because he just started running around, and I was so focused on my photos. But yeah, those kinds of experiences. And the hours pass and you have no idea. And then all of a sudden it's time to go home and the whole day is gone. And you realize it's time well spent.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say that's real experience. Sorry, my headset went out for a second.
Yeah, it did.
But I don't know. It's one of those days today, right?
That's
but
the technology.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, but you just keep moving over the hurdles. That's the thing. I think travel allows you, it's like, yeah, you're going in there, you want to get the photo, but if you're too busy doing the photo, sometimes we have to get away from the camera too, to watch, the baby elephant, and so that you don't get bowled over by the
There are times that I remember photographing a rhino that I'm behind the camera and I can see it's charging, but it's not sitting in my brain. Hello, tell somebody I'll take the camera down. I took the camera down. I'm like, because you're not really thinking about what's actually happening.
The African photo safari is definitely on my bucket list.
Good. I hope you do that. You will have an absolute amazing time. You'll be addicted. You will.
Where was the last place you've been? Like, have you been able to travel during COVID?
Let's see. Well, not nearly as exotic, but I had to do a trip to Florida. But what was special about that was that we wound up on a sunset cruise, which to me sounded like it was going to be horrible and boring and cheesy. But this captain knew the Gulf of Mexico, and he took us to a bridge as the sun was coming down, it happened to be a very cloudy night. And as the sun went down, it illuminated the clouds, and I got some amazing shots.
Awesome.
And that was a lot of fun.
Mm.
But the last overseas trip was to Bangkok.
Mm.
Oh,
Was
that's
to
right.
Bangkok.
I remember
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Man, so you've been all over, and I think, when we think about when we're at death's door, and if we have those moments of reflection, these
Mhm.
experiences are something that we can be joyous about, that we've had these experiences.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think during COVID, what was interesting, we work with so many different travel writers. They've been all these different places, and they're focused on, this is the story I need to do for this publication, whatever it is. And suddenly they're starting to share all these photos that they've never shared,
Mm.
and finding all these stories
Mm.
about the place, and actually learning what was behind that photo. So we saw this overflow of travel stories going out at a time where you really couldn't travel, and yet they're all
Right.
reconnecting in a way.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
thought that was
Mhm.
really cool, because sometimes our memories and photos, we have got these treasure troves of experiences that we just, even when we're there and living through something and in the experience,
Mhm.
there's so much more later when you get home.
Mhm.
Well, getting back to how else can you look at this?
Mm-hmm.
We want to definitely make sure that we do during the pandemic, that very important self-audit, right? Where
Mm.
you do exactly what you're saying, Lisa. Maybe it's about travel, maybe it's about the job that you're in, maybe it's about the relationship that you're in, but we want to, take the time or utilize the time to do that self-audit and ask yourself, am I feeling fulfilled? Am I feeling satisfied? Is there something I would rather be doing than what I'm doing? And this is the time to think about that and maybe even take some steps in that direction.
Mhm.
Well, this is definitely, right now with
Mhm.
COVID, look at how many people are changing careers right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah.
I think it's
Mhm.
because they had a time to
To
breathe
think.
and
Yeah.
think. And so
Right.
that's what travel allows too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I do think, as I wrote in the piece, that spending time away helps you reconnect with your core values.
Mhm.
So what is it that's really important to you? Sometimes when you're away from home and away from the daily grind, that becomes more clear. And you can see if if you're still on the bus you want to be on, or you should have gotten off 3 stops before.
Mm. Right.
You do get tested when you
Mhm.
travel.
Yeah.
And they're little tests, and sometimes there's big tests,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but it's something that you reflect on, talk about later, that makes you make a change. And I think that's why I love travel so much, because if you can't, I don't think you can travel and be bored unless you're sleeping on the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah,
Right.
unless you really shut out
You
everything
need to
that you're
sleep.
seeing,
But
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
be bored
Mm-mm.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we travel full time, and we stay in
Mm.
places, we do our pet sitting, but we've had to recalibrate how we travel because of
Right.
COVID and doing
Mm.
pet sitting, and that's our production time. So we've created this new balance. Like when we get to a
Mm.
place, we get to eat a salad that we made, to try and get healthier, play with animals and work, and kind of have this nice, and it's been interesting. Some things happen in different communities. We get to learn
Mhm.
about the community, but there's between A and B, sometimes we have to just haul and get there. But
Yeah.
there's times like when we drive from Texas to Washington State, we're giving ourselves 5 days of weaving between parks. It's whatever happens, it's this spontaneous, and
Right.
you plan
Mhm.
for it, okay, you're gone for
Mm.
this amount of time, have your social media done, have everybody's phone calls, all of that stuff has to be taken. So you allow yourself that spontaneity. And
Right.
that has become the biggest joy for us.
That's a great way to put it. You should almost
Mm.
put spontaneity time on your calendar,
Yes.
Mhm.
right? I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but sometimes when I get to a new place, everybody's got a watch that counts your steps, right? And at the end of the night, I'll glance down and realize I've walked over 20,000 steps today, just because I wanted to see everything that I could see in one day.
Mhm.
And sometimes it gets out of hand.
Yeah.
I realize I've got 200 photos I've got to go through and edit and all that.
Yep. I
Yeah.
know. And then can you really upload them to the cloud where you are, right? So that's a whole other problem
Right.
for me. Is
Yeah.
like, how many hard drives, cloud versus hard drive, right?
Mm.
If you got a solution for, I'm all ears, because at this point it's getting ridiculous, because we're in the thousands and thousands, and
Yeah, the only thing that I've found that works for me is edit as I go.
yeah,
So in other words, if I'm out for a full day, when I come home, I make sure that at least I'm going to delete what I don't want.
Mhm.
So I upload it and then I delete what I don't want. And
Yeah.
editing will wait. But if I let 5 days of photo shooting pile up, then it becomes insurmountable. So
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen.
see how the
Yeah.
routine comes in. That you have to
Mhm.
have your routine.
Well, sure.
Even you have your spontaneity. I want to go to that, because and it goes back to the rut. And I've watched people travel, and I've watched travel writers go, oh, this is my niche and this is it. I'm sticking to my niche and doing this. And I get it. It makes sense. But we're the blend. And someone will say, well, there's this side trip here. And I'm like, well, I'm
Cool.
not interested in that, but let me go and see. And I've, watched the one friend in particular. We're on a trip and she's like, I only do this, because she's building up her brand of this is who I am.
Right.
But then she's like, well, I'll go try this out, I suppose, with you girls. And then she went like, oh my God, who knew the term comes around? And I've watched her travel writing, her experiences. I mean, it's not the same person anymore. And it's
Yeah.
amazing the amount she has done, and the experiences are things I never thought I'd ever see her do. And just
Mhm.
those little things of, oh, okay, you know what, I'm not really interested in this, but let me go do it. And then next
Yeah.
thing you know, you find that you're really interested in it.
Mhm.
In the piece I quote a gentleman named Pico Iyer, who
Mhm.
is one of my favorite travel writers of all time. And his quote is, we travel initially to lose ourselves, and we travel next to find ourselves.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that, Lisa, what you were telling me about that person reminded me of that quote, because he or she may have thought one thing, and then you're willing to try something, and now you found out something new about yourself. And I think that's valuable information intelligence. Yeah.
And even if you don't
Yeah.
like the experience, and I think that's what was interesting too, it's gonna, when you go somewhere like what your trip in Israel, you come home, you've got this 3-week journey that you went through. I mean, it's amazing. And you come
Right.
back, and not everything's going to be all peachy king, and you have to now get into this shift and balance. But you say it's not going to be like the whole, bowl of roses. You have to do that self audit again when you're back, and look at the real stuff and say, okay, what can I apply? What did I like? So when you
Mhm.
travel, I feel like, okay, you want to go to these specific things. It's
Yeah.
like when people go to Africa, I want to see the
Oh
lion. I
boy.
want to see, there are no tigers.
The big
If
five.
I hear one more person say tigers in Africa, I'm going to
It's like,
lose
hello.
my head. But anyway,
Well,
but you got to do one thing that you just don't think you're interested in, just to see.
right. And the exact opposite of what we're talking about is that bus driver that I referenced in the beginning of the article, because he was driving around, and I asked a very simple question. I said, does the toll take cash when you go over the bridge? And he said, I don't know, I've never been over there, I stay on my side of the bay. And I was like,
That's so weird.
something like that floors me, right?
Yeah.
And of course I went over the other side of the bay and found many, many, many wonderful things to look at, to photograph, to store in my memory, and just to consciously choose not to cross the bridge. I think it's it speaks to the way some people think, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah, it's so much fun to get out and see and smell and hear new things. And sometimes it can be a little scary if
That's good.
but that means that well, number one, you're alive. If you're alive enough to get a little scared, then you're not
Listen,
just
I'm
sitting
sorry.
reading something and non-reacting, or sitting and watching television and non-reacting and just kind of in a stupor. So, for me, travel is everything that's bright, fresh, and new. And even if you've seen some things more than once, it's always slightly different if you're really watching.
When
And
when
it's amazing to me. It's just way more fun.
you've got to get that little bit of an adrenaline thing that happens.
Yeah.
When we went to Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia
Oh, so cool.
this year in the summer, and with us, it's always you've got an issue with your gear in the car. You can't leave it
Yeah.
anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
In heat and whatever. So we had little opportunities to go at least do the boardwalk. And this has been on my bucket list since I was a kid in Africa. People would go, well, what do you care? This alligator versus crocodiles. And I'm going, oh no, there's bobcat. I want to
Yeah.
go here. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, look, detour. Let's do it. Let's go here. Because we had that weird,
Mhm.
spontaneous thing. And
Yeah.
we got there and we had some detours within that. And we finally got there, and the amount of time I wanted, we didn't get, but we got some other places. So we did this. It was beautiful. We saw a big gator. It was
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
cool.
Excited, and we want to come back. And then we had the opportunity to do it again. And so we kind of had our bearings. So you were a little bit more open, even more for, stuff. And of course, we see this beautiful gator sunning himself because it's winter now. You can see their whole
Mhm.
body, and he's all like, dude, this is so cool, like cat yoga.
Yeah.
And this lady comes down, she'd gone to the observation tower, which we didn't get to. And she's like, oh my God, you're going to see so many big gators out there. And I'm
Yeah.
like, cool. But she looks down at the gator and she goes, do you think he'll just come up and get us? And I'm like, no, he's sunning himself. He's chilled out. And he could if he
Yeah.
really wanted,
Yeah.
but they don't. So
Mm-mm.
anyway, we go back, we get to the observation tower, we're looking over and just enjoying the sounds of nature. There was no one
Mhm.
there, just us. And all of a sudden, this big gator out there started snapping on a turtle and crunch, 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 crunch. And you're
Yeah,
like,
it was
dude,
really
now
pretty.
you're looking a little different at this gator you saw on the way in.
Right.
And right before we got to that gator, I was filming a cottonmouth that was
Mhm.
doing with his little head. And if I got one more step near him, that would have been bad. But that little bit of fear of possibly being chomped on and knowing that it is exciting because you get through it. We weren't really scared, but dude, seriously, that cottonmouth could have got me where I was standing. But I feel like sometimes you have to have a little fear.
Yeah.
You've got to.
Well, you remind me of, and I don't know if you've been there before, but Larae Caverns in Virginia.
Not yet.
It's an,
Not
it's an
yet.
underground cavern, and it's really very magnificent. But the story of how it was discovered was very interesting to me. So way back when, I guess in the 1800s, there was a hole in the ground. There was smoke coming out of the ground, and so they decided to put a rope, put somebody on a rope and let them down and see where it led to, right?
Ooh.
And not knowing that
Dude.
it was this magnificent underground cavern, but they wanted to get the lightest person they could, and there was a boy, and he was the
Whoa.
one that they let down. And the takeaway for me was, and the metaphor for me was that, trust and go a little bit further. You don't know what you're going to discover,
Mhm.
right?
Wow.
And that was the story of how Larae Caverns
Wow.
came to be.
You
Um,
know,
and then
that's wild.
and then your alligator story reminded me that I once took a photo that changed my perspective about alligators altogether. There's a wildlife preserve. It's not a zoo, it's a preserve
Mm.
in northern Maryland. And
Mm.
I was going by with my camera, of course, and came to the area where they keep the gators. And believe it or not, I'll send you the photo because you may not believe me. There was the gator was sunning himself just like you described,
Mm.
but on his back was a turtle
Yes.
Mhm.
doing the same thing. And it was
Mhm.
it was like they were good old friends, and they were both laying out there in the sun. I couldn't believe my luck in being able to get that
Mm.
shot.
See,
Yeah, they
that's
do that all
amazing.
the time because the gator looks like a log and the turtle, It's like,
They want
oh,
heat.
I
They
can
want to
climb up
heat.
here and get in the sun, and then it's all cozy and gets a little
Yeah.
dozing off. And the gator's like, yeah, go ahead, you go sleep, see what happens.
You know, I think that you see that kind of thing in nature all the time.
All the
You
time.
know, with
Mhm.
animals doing, here they are next to their enemy. And it's
Yeah.
about knowing when they're hungry. And so the
Right.
only way you know and learn that is
Mhm.
by going out there and facing fear,
Yeah.
And I think that is about life. I think the rut and the creature of habit comes from that. It's that comfort zone of, do I want to be scared today? And really the fear is just not, it's it's the unknown, but it's so rewarding. And okay, I'm not saying go into a place where they're shooting people up. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
Push yourself
Mm.
through a little bit, go through some experiences,
But take
because
precautions.
those things
Of course.
add to your toolbox. And real fear, as you know what I mean, doesn't the amount of the more things you put yourself through, the more it adds to
Mhm.
understanding what true fear is and understanding how to make calculated risk.
Yeah. And
Well,
I
and
don't,
confidence.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it transcends fear, because when you get back from your trip, let's say you've taken the trip, as you said earlier, the challenges are still going to be there. What's different is that you've gained new perspective. And so
Yes.
you bring this new perspective to whatever the challenges are. And the challenge may be as simple as, this job is okay, but I'm not really happy. And what else can I do? So now you've got a little bit new perspective, new balance, and you're smarter about taking on that challenge.
Mhm.
And I think that goes to, I mean, you think back, it was funny because I was Nancy with your article, and you send the photo credits and the photo lines. And Nancy's like, God, he is really good at this. I mean, it was like, it's one of the easiest articles we've ever published. And she goes, and everyone is up on Blend Radio and TV.com. Just, you'll find it under Steve, or just type in Israel's, and also be in the upcoming issue of Quality of Life magazine, the digital magazine. But I said, Nancy, remember, Steve's a, a newspaper man. This stuff doesn't go away. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I think, I think that photography and that travel, does that kind of keep that fuel going? Because we're back to the adrenaline, because being in that world, every single day you're gonna be in something different, being
Well,
in a newspaper writers.
yeah, and all of us are the sum of our experiences, right? My first experience out of college, I was a high school sports writer down in Naples, Florida, and we were a two-man sports desk, which meant that we had to not only cover and write the stories, we had to lay out the pages, we had to take photos, we had to write cut lines, we had to do all of it. There was nobody else to do it. And once you do that, then I don't think you ever quite lose that. So,
Yeah. You know what's going to work and what isn't.
Yeah,
right,
but I mean, it's
right.
like, well, I mean, like that's what I was like,
But-
Nancy. But that comes to
Well,
you.
also knowing your equipment
Yeah.
and reviewing what you're going to send in before you send it in. And really, because we deal with so many people, and it's sometimes they just leave it to the phone or the camera to take the shot. And that means there's a lot of fixing on the other side.
Okay, no, here's
Well-
You know what I
point.
mean? It's like composing the shot
Right.
when you're looking through the lens and
Mhm.
composing the shot. What is going to make a well balanced shot? And looking at the lighting, all those things come into play, as opposed
Right.
to click, click, click.
Well,
This is a very good analogy of what we're talking about with travel, because and make life decisions, because it's, when are you going to get off the autofocus?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Now, another thing that happened with me with my books is that we decided to create book trailers.
I love
And the
those.
way that happened with the first book, Bella, was I was talking with another adjunct professor at AU who was a film professor, and I was telling her about my book, and she said, you need to make a trailer. And at the time, I didn't even know books trailers existed. I go, well, how would you even begin that? And she said, start by writing down the 10 main plot points. And I did. And then we got it all together. But then, it was getting actors, it was adding music, it was getting
It's costly.
locations. So, once I did that, I never had fear of doing it again. So when the next two books came along, we managed to do trailers that were actually, in my opinion, better than the first one. So, it's just, as long as you're diligent about not forgetting what you've learned and applying it forward,
Right.
I think it can always help.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And that's the metaphor too. That's the analogy too.
Yes. And when you travel, always do your laundry where you can and when you can, because you never know. And always know that your luggage can always disappear. And so always spread your money out and your credit cards in
Don't
different
always,
places.
yes. We've learned
Yes.
that. Put your money in different places.
Yes.
Don't put it all in one place.
Yeah, because no, it's about, see, that's it. Because then when something does go wrong, you already have that self prepared. You know what to do because you've prepared and not just going willy-nilly. That's when, you can have some really crazy cool experiences to write about for sure. But it's balance the spontaneity and make sure it's in there. I think that's one of those the things I really took away from what you wrote was that spontaneity, because you can't be on spontaneous 100%. It's like we can't smile 100%. It just doesn't work.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
remember that bad decisions make great stories.
Yes, they do.
That's true
I
too.
know. All the things that happen
That's
on the road, they
true.
always make good stories. And,
Yeah, you just might not want to relive the experience, but
and
Right.
it's
it's a good
okay
story.
to not enjoy an experience. That's the thing too. It's okay if you maybe go and say, okay, I'm going to go try this thing over here that I don't want to do. And then you come out of it and you really don't like it. Well, now you know.
That's okay. Now you
And
know.
if you like something new, and I've watched people get new careers from travel because they've done something. They went, oh my gosh, I didn't know this existed. They found their happy place through travel. So, wow. Cool, Steve. Well, hopefully we'll get to meet you on the road someday.
I would
It'd be
like
fun.
that. And
Be
I think we
fun.
all, when we do, I think we should all have a t-shirt that says schedule spontaneity.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
That's a good slogan, man. I like that. Schedule
Yeah.
spontaneity. Yep. And but you don't need to combust. That's
No.
all.
Yeah.
No combusting happening. But what a pleasure. We're very excited for everyone to see your story in the magazine. Quality of Life magazine comes out the first week of February. So the best thing to do is to go to blendradioandtv.com and sign up for our newsletter. We send emails out every time we publish a new digital magazine. Again, Steve's article is up there, but you can also go to Steve's website, Steve-Piacente.com, and go get his book, Your New Fighting Stance, Good Enough Isn't, and You Know It. See, don't mess with Steve. It's about being real, because good enough doesn't work for you on travel when things go wrong. Good enough just doesn't happen.
It doesn't work.
It's one of my favorite things, but thank you so much, Steve. It is always a pleasure to chat with you, and especially good to see you too.
Great to see you guys as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.